Megan, welcome to Brew On It, and I am going to discuss the 15 books that I read in June. My bookshelf challenge word for the month of June was birds, so the first book I picked was Life, Loss, and Puffins, and the main character is a young female who is freakishly smart. Her bucket list item of seeing puffins in the wild takes her on a coming-of-age journey with her friend to go to the Arctic Circle after her mother dies. So there's a lot of loss and grief and friendship in this young adult story. And you see her journey from having a lot of head knowledge to having wisdom from life experience. The Life, Loss, and Puffins is by Catherine Ryan Hyde. I gave this 3 stars. The next book I listened to was Finley Donovan Digs Her Own Grave by Ellie Casimano. I gave this a 3.5 stars. It was the regular chaos of how this woman ends up in the places she does, and part of it is she has no boundaries, so it's another comical read. The third book I read was The Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. This is a fantasy romantasy. This is book 2 in the series, and this is a magical tale. We follow Rune Withers, who finds out in book 1 that she is a witch, and her nemesis, Gideon, who is extremely attractive, and this is an enemies to lovers trope. Some of the plot points didn't really jive for me. Seraphine was a little too obviously spoilery. And there was multiple same-sex characters with sex scenes, so this is definitely not a young adult. This is an adult series, so I only gave this one a 3.75. You can round it up to a 4, but you definitely have some skimming that you're going to have to do. Book 4 I listened to was Unknown Threat. This is a Christian suspense by Lynn H. Blackburn. Parts were good, but police dramas just don't tend to hold my attention very well. So overall, it was a good story, but nothing really that is super memorable to me. Book 5 was Meridian File. This is a romantic suspense by C.B. Samet, and this was an ebook. I gave it 3 stars. It was an okay story, but there were just multiple typos. I learned a little bit about professional tennis, which was interesting, but there was a lot of unnecessary scenes and predictable endings, so just 3 stars for me. Book 6 that I read was a 5-star. This is my first 5-star. The Words We Lost by Nicole Deese. This was an ebook. Again, this is Christian fiction, and I have pages and pages of quotes from this book because it was that good. This book was great. It was not just entertaining, but it was also uplifting. This is book 1 of the Fog Harbor series, and here are some quotes from the Words We Lost. The sincere friends of this world are as ship lights in the stormiest of nights. That is a quote that she quoted from Giotto di Bondone. A reminder that even though there are still things to talk and sing and laugh about in this life, there are also things to miss and lament and grieve too. Both are welcome and both are necessary. So this story follows some lifelong friends that are reuniting or reconnecting after a period of time of being away, and it was just some really great relationship and communication throughout this whole book. I'd be terrified for them to see the world I really live in, one so unlike theirs. Yet when they hadn't abandoned me to it. They joined me in it. I can't help but hold on tight to this gift I've been given a second time around, one that came through devastation and loss, but also through sacrifice and love. She'd given me a family, one who hadn't shied away from my father's struggles, but had prayed for his victory and grieved over his losses, the same way they grieved for mine. There is a point in the book where the character is overcome, and they marvel at the truth I simply couldn't see clearly until now. I went, doesn't that just hit perspective? Like, we all have this idea of the way things are, and then it's like God just takes a layer off and you're like, okay, now I get it. And I love when he does that. What kind of hardship had they overcome during that time? What kind of tragedies and regrets have they navigated? This was when the character was looking at people that they hadn't seen in a while and realizing that everybody's on a journey. So it was just kind of her internal dialogue about looking at people with grace. A character said, I'm simply trying to focus on having faith enough for today. And I thought, isn't that words to live by? So again, the main quote that I took from this book was, it was hers to make, mine to support, and God's to control. And man, when I read that, it just kind of like hit me, because we're not always going to agree with what people do, but it's their decision. And what do we then do when we're in that position? We can support and then leave the rest to God's control. So, great quote. Turns out there's no perfect way to tell a painful truth to someone you love. If only I knew sooner the kind of freedom truth can bring, I never would have kept it so long from the people I love most. I promised God long ago that I would look for the good in every season of life he gives me, even the hard ones. And right now, I'm looking straight into the eyes of the good that came from the season I shared with your father. This was a mother talking to her daughter. And I was just like, oh, what a thing. You know, when you're in a relationship with somebody that hurts you, to be able to still find the good. And what a beautiful thing to say to your daughter. You know, that is to let somebody know how much they mean to you, that there's a sense of belonging, that there's acceptance, that there's love. And that is something I have told my girls. Like, it's so easy to jump in and go, oh, you know, like somebody's life, letting somebody know that they are wanted and that they belong and that they are loved is so crucial. If you waste your heart on hate, you'll miss the good life has to give. And this one kind of stuck out as a business model. Who knew you could get business principles in a fiction book, but you can. So the main character said that they were praying with Patty in the lobby about managing this hotel in a way that would prioritize people above business and our faith in God above our own agendas. We've continued to apply that relationship principle to every decision, big and small, as well as to every employee we hire. And I went, that's a good model for life, period. Putting people above everything else. All right. So I said there was a whole page of quotes. I would be here half a day if I read them all, so I'll probably just pick a few of my favorites. But 7th book I read in the month of June was called Savor It by Tara DeWitt. I actually wanted to read the second one in the series because I heard that was better, but figured I should read number 1 first. The first book is a romance. I gave it 4 stars, but there's a lot of spice, so you might need to skim. We follow Sage, who is a jilted animal lover, and Fisher, who is a chef and is working on his culinary Michelin stars, and it is a summer competition in a small town, and I loved it. I loved the book. Like I said, I had to skim some spice, but the actual story, learning about Michelin stars and chef stuff, and I'm not that great of a cook, or I'm not that great of a chef. It was fun to learn some of the ins and outs of what it takes to get a Michelin star and things like that. So it was very interesting to read. And the second one is called Left of Forever. And this one is a 5-star. So the first one was a 4-star. The second one was a 5-star. People were correct. Number 2 is better, for sure. Number 2 also had a lot of spice in it, so you will have to skim, or you might need to skim if that's your preference. We have Ellis, who is a firefighter, and he is mentioned in book 1. This is kind of his comeback story. And we have Wren, who is his ex-wife and a baker in this small town of Spoons. They are estranged and have been divorced for the last 5 years, but they've done a incredible job with their son, and he is getting ready to go off to college. And they bring their son to college and do this road trip and kind of fall back in love after walking through their hurts and communications. And the process of them talking through their relationship was really, really well done. So 5 stars. Okay. Left of Forever had some good quotes in it as well. Healthy communication and conflict resolution are so much more difficult than anyone talks about. But for as much as it deals in hardship, life hands out those occasional chances too, sometimes second chances, and lasting love ultimately comes down to choice. If you are listening in headphones, beware. I had the day to dick around and I overdicked it. It just made me guffaw out loud. It's like the old me is gone, but the new me hasn't quite shown up yet either, and I'm distressingly confused by it. We earned the scars and those tender spots in our stories. Holding on to the happy takes work. Now, number 8 that I read is called Grace of the Empire State. This is by Gemma Tizard. I gave this 3.75 stars. We follow Grace, who is a dancer, and Patrick, her twin brother, who is a riveter on the Empire State Building. And we get to see immigrant life and just how difficult it was at that time in the city. And they have a sick younger sister, and there's the whole Italian family and Irish families, and a lot of kids living on top of each other, and just the difficulty of that time. But you also get to see the challenge of feeding a family, and Grace and Patrick end up switching roles, and the dancer is now dancing along I-beams of the Empire State Building. She's not really dancing, but you get it. She is now doing her brother's job when he gets hurt, and the whole process of how that works. And it was a really interesting story. It was a little slow to get into, though. The end definitely was better than the start for me. Okay, so the next book I read was The Roads We Follow by Nicole Deese. This is number 2 in the Fog Harbor romance series. And we have Reagan and Micah, who we follow. Again, I have a whole page full of quotes from this book. We have Reagan, who is the youngest daughter, who's kind of lost in the shadow of her famous mother singer, and kind of lost in the family obligations of what it takes to run their family business. And she is fighting her desire to write her own story, literally write, because she is a writer. And Micah is an ex-school therapist, and he subs as a driver for his dead mother's estranged best friend's family. Say that 10 times fast. And he is in search of finding who his biological father is. His mother recently passed, and he finds out that his dad isn't his dad. So he's on a hunt, and there is a stress of what healthy communication is in this story. His being a therapist came in very handy for this very dysfunctional family, and their lack of boundaries and all that is discussed. And it is a great story. 5 stars. Totally recommend it. This is also Christian fiction. Let's see. Let me get to the quotes for this one. I trust her, and I think trust has a lot to do with what takes people from being average friends to best friends. There's a divine intimacy in nature that can't be duplicated. I want to help people find that. I love her through her pain, through her grief, through her trauma, and through all the healing that would eventually come. I loved her. Establishing healthy boundaries of open communication, of keeping short accounts, of setting honest and appropriate expectations, of having conversations with the hope of reconciliation. Freedom and peace work in tandem, and you won't experience either until you're finally willing to be transparent with yourself and others. The absence of someone we love by choice is a different kind of pain, a different kind of heartache. Number 11, I read The Making of Biblical Motherhood by Allison Beth Barr. And this was a lot to absorb, but it was fascinating to read. She really did a great job of highlighting the different interpretations of Paul's kind of controversial statements. And yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation about women in ministry and their roles. And I really feel like we're all going to get to heaven and have some of our theology a little off. So you got to hold some of these things with like a grain of salt. But I do see the importance in speaking up on this topic. So I gave this one 4 stars. Like I said, I think it's definitely worth a read. And my brain hurt at the end of it. So it was good. Good nonfiction read. And then the 12th book that I read was Variation by Rebecca Yarros. I gave this one 3 stars. I've read several books by her, and this just wasn't my favorite. This was the whole world of ballet was kind of interesting. Again, there was some good communication things that were highlighted, and just the power of perspective. Like, we get in our minds what our thing is, and our life experiences and our wounds can kind of warp how we see things. And it's very important to have other people in your life to kind of go, hey, have you ever thought about it from this point of view? And this fiction piece definitely did that. So again, I enjoyed it. It was about a kind of second chance romance of people that are reuniting 10 years later. And like I said, it was good, but I had trouble sticking in there with that one just because it wasn't my world. But if you like ballet, it might be right up your alley. Number 13, Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This is a 4-star for me. I love Abby Jimenez. But, this one was a little harder to handle because it's the topic of dementia. We follow Samantha, who is dealing with family in caregiving mode. We have Xavier, who is a vet who had abusive parents. They have this great escape room date where they really click, and then she has to go home to the West Coast to take care of her mother, who has dementia, and help her siblings and father, who are all caring for her. And she leaves this cute vet who she really clicked with, but who's just getting his practice established, and there's just no conceivable way that they will get together. But their meet cute is to die for, and like I said, I love it. This was 4 stars. Here's some quotes. Knowing this now doesn't change the memory, but it changes the way I feel about the memory. That's what apologies and perspective does. It changes how you feel about what happened. All right, book 14 that I read was a Regency romance called Eden Brook. And I gave this 5 stars. It is by Julianne Donaldson. And I loved it so much that I then went and got her previous book called Blackmore, which I gave 4 stars. Both of them are Regency romances. Eden Brook, though, had a joint book where it was her perspective, and then a mini book that was his perspective, and I really liked that. It was just really cool to see just the difference of time of the roles men and women had back then, and just to see, like I said, his and her perspective in Eden Brook was great. We have Marianne, who is the younger twin by a couple seconds. She is invited to the country estate of her twin's friend. On the way there, there is a mishap where there is a highwayman who robs them, and in this process, she ends up meeting Philip, who kind of doesn't want her to know who he is, and he gets to see the colorful, more genuine side of Marianne. And then the little novelette at the end shows the meet cute from his point of view, and that was just awesome. I loved seeing both of their perspectives of how they first meet. And yeah, 5 stars for that one. They say Blackmore is like a Wuthering Heights meets Little Women must-read twist. And it delivered. I really enjoyed reading this one. Kate's family has been involved in a little bit of a scandal, so Henry's mother doesn't really want her around, and they're childhood friends, and they've grown up together, and he promised that she'd get to see his estate one day that has cool it's an old estate with cool, what do you call it, secret passageways and haunted wings and things like that, and she has been dying to see it, and now she finally gets to go, and the plot thickens from there, and she is determined to go and adventure and never marry, and her mother says, well, if you get 3 proposals, then I'll let you go to India with your aunt, and she takes on this challenge, and she gets to see the moors and find the hidden passageways and things like that with her childhood friends. Kate is friends with Henry and his sister when they were young, and they've kind of grown up together, and now she gets to see where they summer every year. So July's bookshelf challenge word is royalty. So I will be looking for a book having to do with royalty. If you have any suggestions, please leave it in the comments below. So that is the 15 books that I read in June. So I have one more month of summer to read as much as I possibly can and enjoy the sunshine. I hope you get to read some good books and you leave some suggestions for me in the comments. Hope you're all having a wonderful summer.